Morning, everybody. Welcome to our seminar this morning, and as we prepare for welcoming you to Canadore in September or in another semester, we thought it'd be really great to get together to answer some of the questions that you may have and to better understand some of the situations that we all find ourselves facing as the world struggles with COVID-19. This morning, we're joined by a number of wonderful people, wonderful panelists, and an extremely knowledgeable group of individuals here. We have Elizabeth Long and Zia Sumar from Long Mangalji Immigration Consulting and Support. And Elizabeth and Zia have helped us over time really create questions and answers, guidance, advice, and a number of tools to support students and their families as you look to study with us here at Canadore. We're also joined by Laura Solano Mayo, who is a member of our international team. And Laura brings with her a large amount of experience in international education, both in Canada and in other countries, and has really added a lot of good guidance and advice and depth to our team. Laura, thank you for coming today. I'd like to also introduce Jeanette Miron, our Registrar and Director of Strategic Enrollment Services. Jeanette works with our international and domestic recruiting and admissions teams to help students realize their goals to get to Canadore and to help them succeed on their journey. Today's session is being recorded, and so it will be able to be watched a little bit later, and we wanted to share that with you. We also have a chat function that the team is going to work with you. And I encourage you to ask questions not only today, but after the session as well, by going online to check out our frequently asked questions, by contacting us directly, or by getting in touch with somebody that you may have had contact with either in our international team at any of our campus locations or whatever way is convenient for you. I'm a vice president at Canadore, and I'm really pleased that you've chosen to study with us. It's really an unprecedented time, and we know this, and we know that there's a lot of anxiety and concern about studying, about whether you're able to get to Canada, and whether you're able to start your program as planned. And I can tell you that we're learning just as quickly as you are how things are unfolding, and our team is doing our very best to try and make sure that you can achieve your educational goals. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the team and welcome you, and we'll go from there. So Elizabeth, maybe I'll turn it over to you now.
Great. Thank you so much, Sean. Welcome everyone to our session. Let me explain to you a little bit about what we're going to do today. So Zia and I, we're lawyers in Canada, and we're not the school. We do work with the school and provide immigration advice. And so today we're going to be talking about some of the immigration strategies and policies that will affect you. Okay, so let's get down to basics. What is a study permit? It allows you to study in Canada in a program of over 6 months. Only designated learning institutions, such as Canadore, will allow you to get a study permit. That's not to say that all DLIs will allow you to get a post-grad work permit afterwards, though. Only public colleges and universities allow you to get the post-grad work permit. So Canadore is one of those institutions that will allow you to go and get that post-grad work permit. If you go to a private college, that won't allow you to get the post-grad work permit. There are a lot of people confuse visas and study permits. Visas allow you to enter Canada if you are from a visa requiring country. India, China are all countries that will require you to have a visa. If you're from the States, you don't need a visa to come to Canada, so you don't need the visa in your passport. The study permit, however, is required for everyone who wants to study in Canada in a program of over 6 months if you don't have citizenship or permanent residence. So the study permit you will get at the border. The visas, if you need it, you will get in your passport when you apply for your study permit, and then they approve it and they're going to ask you for the visas. Now, you'll get a study permit approval letter, and then when you come to the airport, normally you're supposed to get the study permit. Now, there's a lot of differences during these crazy pandemic times that we're going to talk about with regard to the process as well, okay? So before we get there, I just wanted to give you some more basics about what is required for a study permit, because a lot of people, they'll say, well, I followed all of the document checklist and I submitted everything and my application still was refused. Why is that the case? Well, here are some of the basics about what is required, what the officers are looking for when you are applying for a study permit. First of all, you need to be accepted into the school, okay? And you need to show that letter of acceptance when you're applying for your study permit. Second of all, you need to show that you intend to study. We often see a lot of mature students being rejected for this reason, because they say, well, you know, you're 40 years old. Why do you want to study all of a sudden? That's not to say that a mature student cannot get a study permit. But you do have to provide a study plan. Everyone should, even if you are going to your first year, you should have a study plan. Why is it that you want to study in Canada? What is this going to be doing for your career? Why do you want to study in this particular program? Okay. You should have funds to study as well. You can often get the GICs, you know, from the countries. That's good, especially if you're going to you know, apply under the SDS, right? But sometimes, even if you don't apply under SDS, you want to apply, you can show that you have the savings. It's not good enough also to just show, oh, I have this amount of savings today. You need to know where your funds came from, because sometimes people can just borrow a large sum of money from someone. They don't really have that money available to study. Okay, so normally what we want to see a track record of funds, okay, if you're not doing the GIC, right? If you're getting funds from your parents, you want to show where their income comes from as well, okay? Intention to follow the laws of Canada and leave when required. When an application is denied, almost always the officer will check, I do not believe that this person is going to leave when they are required. So in Canada, we have something called dual intent. Someone can want to get permanent residence, but they can also still get a temporary resident visa if they can show that they will still follow the laws of Canada and leave when required. But overall, the officer takes into account the entire application. And they sometimes see factors like you haven't really traveled before, you've been rejected before, you know, you have, I don't believe that you misrepresented something, or they believe that you misrepresented something on your form. And so then they think, oh, well, I don't trust this person. I don't think this person's going to leave when required. This is oftentimes very confusing and frustrating for people when they genuinely say, I'm certainly going to follow the laws, I'm going to leave, but the officer won't believe me. If you have an application that is rejected, do come to us. We'll have to take into account the application as a whole. Every situation is different, but certainly, you know, showing that you have the intent really to study and you have a good track record will help with getting your application approved. Okay. If you can get your study permit, your spouses, they also qualify for open work permits, and your children, they can apply for study permits, and with the study permit, they can go to public school in Canada for free. Okay, so you can have your accompanying family apply to come with you. You do have to show that you have enough funds to support them in Canada, the living expenses to support them if you want to bring them together with you. All right, now let's get to the meat of the situation with regard to the pandemic. You know, we just had a webinar last month, and even from last last month, we all of a sudden have a lot more to talk about because the rules have been constantly changing. Okay, so let's talk about basics. First of all, Canada currently has a travel ban for international students. Okay, if you have not received the study permit approval by March 18th. So if you have received the study permit approval by March 18th, you should be able to get on the plane. We have heard of some students who, even with that, the airline still don't want them to get on the plane. That is something that you may be able to fight. We may be able to take a look at that, because if you've received the study permit approval by March 18th, you should be able to get on the plane. If you have not, then, and you get it afterwards, then currently the airlines are not allowing you to get on the plane unless you fall into other exceptions. For example, you have family members in Canada who are Canadians, etc. Okay. Now, even if you can get on the plane and you can get to Canada, okay, if your classes are 100% online, the CPSA officers still may not allow you to enter Canada because they feel like your entry to Canada, your stay in Canada, is discretionary and optional, okay? If the officer says, well, you don't really have to be in Canada at this point, they still can say, you don't need to be in Canada at this point, okay? So even if you have your study permit approved before March 18th, all of your classes are online, talk with your school, but it may not be a good idea right now to travel to Canada for this semester. If you have labs, if you have other reasons why you need to be in Canada on a physical basis, the school can provide you with a letter, and you can try to convince the officer that, look, I have to be in Canada. This letter says I have to be in Canada and be in Canada physically to study. So let me in, okay? And the officer may let you in then. Now, if you are currently in Canada, there's good news. If you have a study permit, you can study online, okay? And the immigration has finally confirmed that before there was a 50% rule. If you study online 50%, over 50%, you can't study online. You can't get the postgrad work permit. Now, it doesn't matter. Even if your classes are online for most of it, as long as you are in Canada, you still can have that contribute towards your postgrad work permit. You still can qualify for the postgrad work permit. If your classes are canceled in Canada and you have to study part-time inside Canada, you can still maintain your student status and work part-time, unless it's essential services, and you can work full-time right now. If you are applying for your study permit inside Canada, we just had an announcement last week that now you no longer, for people who are inside Canada and applying for temporary residence like study permits and work permits and visitors extensions, you don't need to get biometrics right now. Also, hopefully this does not apply to you, but if you had status until January 30th and somehow you lost your status, you forgot to file an extension of your study permit, etc. Usually you have 90 days to file the restoration of status. Right now you have until the end of the year to file the restoration of status. Okay, so let's talk about applying from abroad for your study permits. If you are outside of Canada, there's a new process for you. So you can apply, first of all, you can apply online for your study permit, okay? You don't need to submit your biometrics and medicals right away. Especially, if they're not available, you don't need to submit the medicals, okay? Now, your application is still going to be processed at this point. This is the new announcement. Without biometrics and medicals, your application will be processed, And if you are approved without the biometrics and medicals, you'll receive what's called an approval in principle. Okay, so for the fall semester, if you apply before September 15th, even without biometrics and medicals, you can receive an approval in principle. So once you have the, and then if you can do your biometrics and medicals, you can get a study permit approval letter. So the approval in principle says, yes, you're approved pending biometrics and medicals. If you pass your medicals and you've done your biometrics, then you get the study permit approval letter. With the approval letter, you can travel to Canada. Not right now, but you know, if it was approved before March 18th, you can travel to Canada. After the pandemic is done and the travel restrictions are lifted, you can travel to Canada, okay? During the travel restrictions, though, even if you can travel to Canada, the officer will want to know that you need to be in Canada physically. You know, sometimes there's a loophole where if people can go to the US, they can still fly into Canada, even if, you know, your study permit is approved after March 18th, if you go through the US. So somehow, if you can travel to Canada, the officer will still want to know, hey, do you need to be in Canada physically? Okay. So the immigration understands that most of you will have your classes online and most of you will have your study permit approved after March 18th, and you're not going to be able to travel to Canada right now. What they are saying is either with a AIP, where you don't have your biometrics or medicals, or with the study permit approval online, your studies online abroad will count towards your postgrad work permit. As long as 50% of your overall program is completed in Canada. So if you're doing a one-year program and this semester is online, you can study back home. If you have, you must apply for your study permit and receive the approval in principle or the study permit approval letter, and that will count towards your postgrad. So if you have a one-year program and then you come back to Canada in the winter semester, you can get a one-year postgrad work permit. If you're doing 2 years program, you can study abroad for, you know, the whole this semester and next semester if it's online as well, and then come into Canada after the following and study in Canada for 2 semesters, and you can still get the 3-year work permit for your postgrad work permit. So let's talk about the work permits and what you can do if you come to Canada and you want to work. You have to be full-time students, okay? Pandemic times, there are exceptions. And the last semester of the school, sometimes if you're doing a part-time, because people just need one more course, you can study part-time and still be allowed to work. On campus, you can work full-time. And off campus, you can work 20 hours while taking classes and full-time during scheduled breaks. During the COVID, you can work full-time for essential services. Okay, it's currently until the end of the summer. If you have a co-op work component, you must apply for the co-op work permit and get your co-op work permit to work full-time as part of the education program. So if you guys are applying for a program that has a co-op component, apply for your co-op work permit together with your study permit as well. While you are in Canada, you should not be working before you start your program because you're not a full-time student then. Okay. Once your program ends, you need to stop working until you've applied for your postgrad work permit. Once you've applied for your postgrad work permit, then you can start working full-time. Let's talk a little bit about the processing timelines. So in summary, here's what I would do if I were you, okay? If you're applying from outside of the country. You First of all, get your documents ready and submit your application for your study permit and co-op work permit if you need to. If your study medicals are available, you can do your medicals and you can apply for the SDS. If your medicals are not available, I would still submit your application and under the regular program, because you can get the AIP and you can start studying online back in your home country and accumulate that time for the postgrad work permit. Okay. If you can do your biometrics, do your biometrics and you can submit your passport if the back office is open. Okay. And then keep up to date, right? You can study and make sure that as long as your studies right now are outside of Canada or only 50% of your program, you're fine for your postgrad work permit. If later on you need to, you can't come to Canada and another 50% of your course is due, if your program is due, then consider talking to the school and seeing perhaps if a deferral might work or if some other alternative methods might be available. The school, Canadore College, is very, very accommodating. They really understand what you guys are going through, and I'm sure they're going to be helping you with that, okay? Always keep up to date with regard to what the policies are. What we tell you today is true today, but it could very well change tomorrow. You know, like I said, we had a webinar last month, and this month, a lot of things have changed as well, okay? So we do have a website, a COVID-19 website that we try to add new changes, and there is also the IRCC website, although it could be a little bit confusing, but they do have a COVID website on the IRCC as well. If your application is rejected, you need to talk to a lawyer right away. The federal court notice period is 60 days from the date of rejection for applications if you filed the application outside of Canada. Currently, the courts are closed, semi-closed, so they might be a little bit of leeway in that way, but still there are timelines. And if you are rejected, it's not just a matter of refiling an application often. There are reasons why your application was rejected. If you refile the same thing, or you don't address what was at issue before, then your application will likely be rejected again. Okay, so if your application is rejected, do contact a lawyer. You contact us. Here's our information, or other immigration lawyers as well. Okay, so here's our information. Like I said, we are not Canadore College. We work with Canadore College and advise students oftentimes, but we are not Canadore College. If you have questions about your program, please do contact the school. Laura, Jeanette, Sean, they're available to talk to you about your classes. If you have immigration issues, personal immigration issues, please do feel free to contact us and let us know that you've attended the webinar and you're from Canadore College, and we can offer you a discounted consultation fee for arranging consultation to talk about your personal issues. Okay? So we have some time for question and answer. Zia, do you have some questions that we've received from students?
Yes, we've definitely received lots of great questions. Mm-hmm. So Elizabeth, can you speak first about individuals who have already submitted their applications, if they're waiting? Do we have an idea of how long generally processing is taking or is delayed right now?
That's a really good question. It's not a great answer that I can give because of COVID. You know, a lot of these times are changing rapidly. With regard to your applications, submit them now. No point in waiting at all. Submit them now. If you're waiting for your applications, you know, there are ways perhaps that you could check. You can go on the web form and try to email them or email the embassy to check and see, what's happening. Sometimes they'll respond, sometimes they won't. But currently, like previously, a lot of the applications were on hold because they needed biometrics or medicals done. Now, because of the new approval in principle policy that the immigration has just come out, I suspect a lot of these applications will now be processed based on that AIP. So many of your applications that have been sitting for a while, I would expect them to be processed possibly in the next couple of weeks, because now the officers can actually process the applications. Okay, so do sit tight, but I think a lot of your applications that are on hold probably will be processed soon.
Perfect. Elizabeth, you mentioned a date of March 18th, and you said that that was the date that IRCC has set for who can travel to Canada and who can't. Can you speak again to that?
Yes. So we have we have a main travel ban, which has to do with the airlines. The airlines have a rule where if you have your study permit approved before March 18th, or you already have a study permit in hand, okay, the letter that you have is not a study permit. The letter that you have is a study permit approval letter. You can only get a study permit once you come to the airport, and they'll issue you a study permit based on the approval letter. Okay, so basically the rule is you can't get on the plane to come to Canada from anywhere outside of the United States if you only have a study permit approval letter that was issued after March 18th. If you have a study permit approval letter issued before March 18th, they should let you on the plane. However, once you can get on the plane and you can come to the airport, let's say you come to Toronto Pearson Airport, you may not still be able to enter Canada because the officers there will say, well, I don't believe that you need to be in Canada because all of your classes are online. It's discretionary and optional for you to be here. So go back, okay? So if all of your classes are online, you may not be able to enter Canada, likely won't be able to enter Canada at this point. Now, if some of your classes are online, but you have to be in Canada for labs, you have to be in Canada, and the school gives you a letter, then it's worth it to try to get on the plane and come to Canada. Of course, your approval needs to be before March 18th. We have heard stories of airlines stopping people even, before, if your study permits were issued before March 18th and you want to come to Canada. That shouldn't be the case. If it is, do let us know and we can see what we can do about it, because the airlines don't have the power, or they shouldn't have the power to, go against the rules and not allow you to board the plane if you have a study permit approval. However, things do happen in those kind of cases. Okay.
So if you've received an approval after March 18th and there is a requirement for you to be on campus, so for example, for labs, like you mentioned, is there anything in place to allow those individuals to travel?
Unless you're coming from the States. If you're coming from the States, you can come into Canada and go to the airport and go to the border and try to convince the office to let you in. If you're not coming from the States, then getting on the plane is still going to be an issue if it was issued after March 18th.
Okay. And if I start studying from my home country, so before coming to Canada, and my courses are all online, can you discuss again about how that affects the eligibility for the postgrad work permit?
So the postgrad work permit is important to almost everyone because it allows you to work in Canada afterwards. It allows you to study, it allows you to get permanent residence, a good pathway towards that, right? So the postgrad work permit If you have a 1-year program, normally you get a 1-year work permit. If you have 2-year program or more, you get a 3-year work permit. So the length of time of the program is very important. Now, immigration has put in some special rules to deal with the pandemic. Because a lot of you aren't going to be able to travel to Canada, they are going to allow you, if you have the study permit approval or the approval in principle that I talked about, so you have to apply for your study permit. If you have both of those, then you can study in the Canadore College online classes for this semester. And as long as the time that you are studying outside of Canada is not over 50% of your program, you can qualify for the postgrad work permit at the end, and this semester counts towards that 1 year or 2-year program that you're going to do, okay? So if I'm going to do a 1-year program, I apply for the study permit, I get it approved in principle, or I get an approval letter. I don't have to travel to Canada. I can study at home for this semester, and I still get, if I come to Canada next semester, I can still get the 1-year work permit afterwards. If I'm studying in a 2-year program, I can study this semester and the next semester, and then come to Canada afterwards and still get eligibility for the 3-year program.
That's great. Now, has there been any announcement from IRCC about traveling for the January semester yet?
We don't know anything about January yet. I think a lot of times the government is really trying to deal with things as they come. You know, back in March, I don't think people maybe thought, but people were hoping that it wouldn't last this long. And we are right now, I think there's hope that it won't last until after for next year. Who knows when the vaccine is going to be done. I would expect more announcements to be announced as time goes by, and if students are still not able to travel to Canada in January, I would expect more announcements to be made.
Okay, perfect. You mentioned the student direct stream, and you mentioned which or whether to apply through the student direct or the regular, and that's just based on if you have all your documents. Is that correct?
So the student direct stream during normal times was a fast way for people to apply for their study permits from certain countries, right? Like India, Vietnam. And so basically, if you are from a country that qualifies for the SDS, you have your medicals, you have your police certificates, you have your GICs, you can qualify for that, and it's a fast way to get your study permit. However, with COVID, all this has changed because many of you won't be able to get your medicals. And you won't be able to get your biometrics anyway. So it's not like you're gonna, and even if you get your study permit approved, it's not like you can travel to Canada. So the SDS now becomes a little less useful. What I suggest to you guys now is apply, no matter whether you can get your medicals for SDS or not, apply anyway, okay? And your application will still be assessed. You need to understand and make sure that you can show your funds, you can show your study plan, etc. Just like when I first presented it in one of my first slides. You have to have all the elements of meeting the requirements for study, whether you're applying for the SDS or normal stream. But even if you can't qualify for SDS because no medicals, it's okay. Apply, you can still get your study permit anyway. Or get the approval in principle right now.
Perfect. The next, do we still have Jeanette or Laura on?
Jeanette and Laura?
Questions? Hello, I'm here. Jeanette.
Perfect. We're getting a lot of questions regarding, for students who have an in-class component, so for example, like Elizabeth mentioned with labs, if they wanted to get a support letter from the school, is there a process in place by which they can obtain that letter?
Certainly, they can email international. However, I just want to provide some guidance is that we are issuing automatically. So we're in the process of developing letters for all of our students who have an in-class, either partially or fully face-to-face component to their programs, and we will automatically be sending them to them in the next couple of weeks. So I would say that they should expect to receive something. We're hoping that they would be fully developed by the end of this week, but likely sometime next week, towards the end of next week at the very latest.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think, Elizabeth, I'll turn it back to you. If you could summarize one piece of advice for students right now when they're trying to determine applying and looking at the travel restrictions, any one last piece of advice that you have for students?
Here's the thing. I understand this situation is just a really confusing and crazy situation for you all, but I would say make the best of what you have. Okay, the Canadian government is trying to still encourage students to come and study in Canada, and they've made 4 allowances for you to do so. If you have plans to study in Canada, yes, it's not ideal to study online, but if your timeline is such that you have a certain timeline when you want to get your studies and you want to come to Canada and get your postgrad work permit, you do have the opportunity to do so right now. And so if it is right for you to start studying this semester, and you can save some money studying from home, you don't have to pay, Canadian living expenses and such, then apply for the study permit and you can start studying this semester. If you need to be in Canada for the remainder of your program because of the 50%, talk to the school. I'm sure they're going to be very accommodating and try to help you with the next semester, maybe help you with another program or deferral. Talk to Sean and Jeanette and Laura. They're going to be very accommodating for the next semester. Do what you need to do for your life. Try to, if this is the timeline that you want to do it, you can absolutely do it right now. The immigration minister has recognized that we want international students to continue to study in Canada. We're going to make the situation, as good as it can be for you. And this situation is not going to last forever. Knock on wood, it's not going to last forever. And hopefully by next year, we're going to open our borders and allow you guys to travel to Canada and be in Canada. And when you graduate, you'll still get the postgrad work permit, work in Canada, and be on your way towards permanent residence.
Perfect, thank you. That was great.
Okay, all right. So if that's it, that's all of our questions. Sean, did you want to have anything to add?
Sure, thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you to our team this morning. Absolutely, you've shared a number of things that I think are really, really important for the students to remember. And that's that we're concerned about their safety. We want to make sure that they feel supported and that they know and I'll speak directly to the students, Elizabeth. I mean, if you know that you want to study and you know you want to start now, the option exists too. And it may not have been what was envisioned, it may not have been what was planned, but you know what? If your dreams are to achieve a certain education and your dreams are to move forward, let's get started and let's look at moving forward together. We will meet face to face, the pandemic will end, and at some point we will celebrate together at graduation. And that's the really neat thing about the team that's on the call. I mean, Elizabeth and Zia are very talented lawyers who have been providing a lot of support for a number of years now. Laura and Jeanette, I know very well, working close together and side by side. And there are so many others that want to see you succeed. On the same token, if it's not the right time and it's not the right time to start, let us know. We want to make sure that you're comfortable in the education and the path that you choose. and you don't feel any pressure one way or another on your path and on your journey. It's really, really important for you to educate yourself before trying to come to Canada, whether you're online or not. I can tell you the team's been working really, really hard to make sure that the online learning environment, should that be the environment you're choosing, is exciting and engaging and supportive. We have student services moved online and a lot of different things ready to go. If you do have to travel, we have protocols in place when you arrive to safely isolate yourself for a period of time to make sure that you're healthy, and that we have housing and options in place that we're going to keep communicating. And so I really just want to thank you again for considering Canadore. We look forward to meeting you. And I want to thank the panelists this morning, and maybe open up to Laura and Jeanette if you have any closing thoughts or words, and wish everyone a good day otherwise. But Laura, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I was only wanted to say that we are welcome, that any kind of question that any student have, we are open to be there and respond as soon as we can.
Thank you. And Jeanette, do you have anything you'd like to add before we get ready to sign off today?
Thank you, Sean. I'll echo Laura. We are responding as quickly as we possibly can. We're asking you for your patience. Please check our website for the academic delivery plan. Those are common questions. We also post regularly to that FAQ page. So as the conditions, as Elizabeth was saying, and everybody Zia was responding through the chats, this is an environment where things are changing very quickly. So we're trying our best to update that FAQ page so that you can get the answers that you need as quickly as you possibly can. And then certainly reach out to our team if something's not there that you aren't seeing and you want more detail about those FAQs that we've posted there. We'll be happy to answer your question in order as we receive them.
Super. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And we look forward to meeting you and to serving you and supporting you, and wish you a really great day.
Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.